Hello, welcome to Exclam Chess. And in this video, I'm going to be taking a look at a game that was sent to me on chess.com by a player whose username is theonlywae. And he wants me to take a look at this game because he says that he's fairly new to chess and wants some help being pointed into the right direction as how to improve. Okay, so let's go ahead and start looking at this game. So d4, e6, c4, c5, and then right here I probably would just go d5, try to take more space. Knight to f3, certainly not bad. And then your opponent plays f6, that's just bad. That's unnecessary. You don't want to move this pawn and weaken your king unnecessarily without having a great purpose. And that's just unnecessary. Here you played e3. This certainly isn't bad. The only downside though is now you're locking in your dark squared bishop and now it's behind the pawn chain. Maybe you could have waited on playing e3 and maybe first try to find a way of getting the bishop outside the pawn chain before playing e3. Okay, knight c6, knight c3, a6, and after e3 you write that you were trying to avoid the knight on c6 coming to b4, but then after playing a3 you realized that you had nothing to worry about after playing this move. And that's true, you have nothing to worry about. This knight isn't going to b4. It's not going there. It's not threatening anything. And so a3 isn't a necessary move. And when you're playing chess, you want to make sure that every move has a great purpose, because you want to be trying to challenge your opponent as much as possible. And a3 probably isn't the best way to go about challenging your opponent out of the opening. Okay, knight g to e7, g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, castling kingside. Avoid a hassle, always castle. d6, d takes c5, and here your opponent plays bishop d7. That's not that great, because what he should do is he should just take and then accept the loss of time that this variation would have had. But now, after the move he played in the game, bishop d7, now he's just going to be down a pawn. Knight f5, e4, knight h6, bishop takes h6. And here, theonlywae writes that probably could have found a better move, but it wasn't too bad as I was up material, so trading pieces didn't seem bad for me. Okay, and that is true. When you're up material, exchanges benefit you more than your opponent. That's definitely true. The only downside to bishop takes h6 is you're giving up your bishop for a knight in a position where this bishop actually has some nice open squares that it could possibly come to, and meanwhile that knight's sitting on the side of the board and isn't very active. And so, that bishop at the moment had a little bit more potential than that knight, I would say. So you're correct in saying that you probably could have found a better move. Bishop takes h6, rook e1, e5, knight d5, and here theonlywae writes that I wanted to put my knight on a strong square where there were many potential places for the knight to go. And that's absolutely true. This knight on d5 is very well placed, because it's eyeing up all these dark squares in your opponent's position. b6 is weak, c7, e7, f6, all these squares are in your opponent's position, and this knight is pretty well placed there. Your opponent castles, c5, and here you were right in your idea of protecting this pawn on d6. This passed pawn here is very close to being able to queen, and so protecting it is a great idea. f5, queen b3, setting up some discoveries, potentially. King h8. And knight b6. Yeah, that knight looks pretty good. One of the great reasons why it came to d5. Knight takes d7. Queen takes d7. And so one thing about the queen right now is the queen's blocking the passed pawn on d6. And the queen is probably the worst piece to use to block passed pawns, because the queen's the most powerful piece. You usually want to be using her for attacking. And right now black's using his powerful queen to block a pawn. And so this queen can also easily be removed since she's so powerful. A weaker piece can easily try to kick her out of the way, and then white could try to push that pawn forward. Bishop to h3, knight d4, and after knight takes e5, you wrote that this move was a big mistake on your part. That's actually not that true. You're being a little too hard on yourself. This move actually isn't that bad. Because let's just take a look at a lot of possibilities. Say he just takes your queen, then you just take his. And then you're also forking his rooks. And that's just one possible way that it could go. And so this really isn't as bad as you probably make it out to be. So don't be so hard on yourself. Queen b5. Queen takes b5. A takes b5. Knight d7, forking the rooks. And rook e to d1. And so here our player writes that he wanted to defend the pawn with his rook so that he can promote it later, even though the computer says that this is a mistake. And so the reason why this is a mistake is because you could have tried to save this knight. So say you just retreat the knight to e6, then after takes your up a minor piece. But now, let's see here, in the game, rook e to d1, then knight takes a1. And here, if you were to take his knight, then material would be equal. So you had an opportunity to be up a minor piece. In the game, you played d7, and then also in this variation, you could also still just go ahead and take that knight. And then he's not as bad. Of course, when I say not as bad, I don't mean that he's doing in any way very well. I just mean that he's not as bad as he already was. Okay, rook d8. And you're right, that is another big mistake. You wrote that this was a mistake, and that's correct because knight to e6. And then the rook gives itself up to the pawn. Rook takes d7, king g8, e takes f5, g takes f5, and bishop takes f5. And then here's where your opponent resigned because he's down a considerable amount of material. And yeah, you're doing much better here. But okay, so the few points that I can give you is, one thing is you probably just need to keep playing more, because you said you were still new, so keep playing with different time controls to get used to different clock times. And also the other thing is sometimes the moves like a3, they aren't all that necessary, and so you want to always be finding moves to try to challenge your opponent. And moves like that don't challenge your opponent as much as they could and are unnecessary, and you could be using that time to accomplish greater goals. Okay, and so I hope that those 2 points help you. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.